But over to Frank, and again, Frank, thank you for what you've done in terms of coordinating all these various displays and getting them into one big PowerPoint display. So thanks, Frank, and over to you.
Oh, hang on a minute. I've got to get my computer started. Hang on. It's not sharing. There it is. Sorry. Okay, everybody. Well, as John said, welcome to it's the President's Fun Night. So I think you're going to enjoy some of these presentations that we have. We've got about 15 presentations and 35 sheets. So it's, thank you very much to everybody for coming to the to my email, and we only had 5 entries, and and it wasn't going to be, it was going to be a quick night tonight, but we at the moment now we've got 34. So thank you everyone for bringing it all together. All right, now please everyone mute your audio during the meeting if you're not presenting, because we don't want any background noise. And also the meeting is recorded. And it will be put on the website hopefully tonight after the meeting. And I'll hand it over to John to get the batting order going. John.
Okay, the only concern that I've got, Frank, and is going through the list, whether everyone is actually present. We know Gary Diffin and you, Frank, are ready to go. We had Bernie Beston as third cab off. Is Bernie with us or not?
No, Bernie's not with us yet.
Okay. Edward Brentnell, I know, is there.
Yeah.
Following Edward is Ian Gregg, I know is there. Alan Shatton, I have not seen either.
No.
I'm there.
Bill Clark,
he just arrived.
He's just arrived. Good on you, Alan. Bill Clark follows Alan Shatton. Brian Fuller, again, I haven't seen Brian.
No.
Okay. His are probably pretty self-explanatory anyway, so I think that's not a problem. We've got Les from the US who follows Brian Fuller. Tony Presgrave, Peter Leach, Joe Edwards, Mark DeSirio, but I've not seen Mark either.
No, I haven't seen Mark either.
But anyway, he's well down the batting order. So let's kick the ball off.
Mark's on. Yeah, he's here.
Is he? Excellent. Yep. So we've got a good proportion. So immediately then over to the first slide and Gary Diffin, and thanks Gary for kicking the ball off.
Beautiful. What I've decided to show today is so a step back in time. It's a comic theme that came from the Prohibition and the how they promoted Canadian tourism to the northern United States. So with the Volstead Act, and that was enacted in between various states, but basically you'd say from 1920 onwards until repeal in 1933. So we all know about Prohibition. The United States was dry, or supposedly dry. What happened is that people used to skip across the border in Canada. And so Canada, they could drink as much as they like. And so there was a couple of enterprising postcard publishers who used to produce these postcards and send them off to people in the United States and say, come and visit Canada. For an example, we all know the camel theme. And you look at that top card and a camel can go without a drink for 2 weeks, but who in hell wants to be a camel? So you look at all these Canadians and they're all pretty hammered. So there's about 2 or 3, there's probably 3 publishers, and the series of postcards probably had about 20 or 30 each. So what you'll have here is a couple of postcards from different publishers representing Canadian inebriatism and inviting the United States people to come and join them. So we can flip off to the next one, Frank.
Yep.
So, as you can see, they're all captioned individually, and you can see that this series of cards is different from the previous one, tended to have the same illustrators, and they weren't holding back on what they were promoting. So lots of swallows, a handful of joy in Canada, and you couldn't do that legally in the United States. So it was very, very funny. And the thing is that the unused cards they're not all that common, and used they're even less common. I've only seen these a couple of times. It's taken me many, many years to accumulate about 15 of these, but they're a lot of fun.
All right.
It's almost like Victoria getting out of COVID, getting out of lockdown, and this is what you're going to get into.
Good on you,
Pass
Gary.
it on to the next one. They can enjoy having a look through these.
All right. I assume I'm next.
Yep.
You are.
All right. I assume that everyone will remember Ginger Meggs, and we've all read the comic strips. Well, probably not in Melbourne, but in Sydney. The reason I picked these, this topic is the cover you're seeing at the moment. I purchased on eBay. It's a first day cover, which is actually using the Associated Press, which publishes the Sydney Sunday Sun, and it's got the Ginger Meggs stamp on it, postmarked on the first day of issue. And as you know, Ginger Meggs is probably the most popular and long-running comic strip in Australia, which was created in 1921 by Jimmy Banks. The comic strip follows the escapades of a red-headed, pre-pubescent mischief maker who lives in an inner suburban working-class household. While employed at the Bulletin, Banks submitted cartoons to the Sydney Herald, where he began his Us Fellows strip on November 27th, 1921, in the Sunbeam section of the Sunday Sun. And here you will see it's another first day cover with the Ginger Meggs stamp and postmark, the commemorative postmark of 1985, when the children's folklore strip stamps came out. So when Banks died on July the 1st, 1952, Ron Rivian took over the strip from 93 to 73, followed by Lloyd Piper from 73 to 82, James Kemsley from 83 to 2007, and Jason Chatfield from 2007 onwards. The cover it's illustrated there was signed and designed by James Kempsey, who was the comic strip illustrator from 83 to 2007. And here we is another cover that was designed by Kemsley, but it's signed by Hedley Summerfield, who was the son of Charlie Summerfield, who Ginger Meggs was based on. The character was based on Charlie Summerfield, who was a resident of Sydney's suburb of Hornsby, who went to and became a businessman and councillor. Charlie Summerfield and James Kemsley were very long friends, and that's how James Kemsley had how he got the comic strip going with all his memories of his childhood escapades. And this comic strip, I thought it was one for today. It's when Ginger Meggs met Don Bradman, and today is the first day of the Adelaide Test. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hand it over to John. I can't remember who's next.
Is Bernie with us or not?
No, he's not.
Okay, well, let's assume. Can we just go through, because you've got?
Yeah, we can just go through it.
So let's just all have a quick read of all of that.
Yeah.
Very religious. The Book of Genesis. God told Noah. My heavens.
I think this is the this is three pages from Bernie's koala thematic exhibit.
Ah, okay. I'm looking for the koala. I'm sure.
Well, so am I.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yep, got him. Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
This is the next.
Frank, go back. We want to see where the koala is.
In the middle.
In the middle. Okay,
three rows down, 4
In the middle
across.
stamp.
There.
And next door.
There's two.
These two stamps. Can you see it?
Okay, moving on. Okay, I'm not quite sure whether we're going to make too much of all of that. So let's
No.
kick on to the next one. In the beginning of the Great Flood.
No wonder I only drink water when I am unwell.
You never know where it's been.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
All right.
Right. We go on to Edward. Edward Brentnell, please.
Hello. This is a long time ago when I first started. We had an au pair girl from Finland working in it. We lived in northern London in the suburbs. And one day she dropped an envelope on the stairs. And I looked at the stamp and I'd never seen anything like that before. And it's, please, Aya, can I have that? So she gave it to me. And that was the start of the infection. And I've never recovered. So I still have
There's
that
going to be a
stamp.
vaccine out for it very soon, Edward, don't worry.
So, yep. This is the penny black that isn't a penny black. The Henry Archer essays, but there it is. It's exactly like a penny black, but of course it isn't Queen Victoria. It's Albert, and that was trialed out, and it had two shades of brown, a blue, and a black. But there's the penny black that isn't.
Edward,
This
can you
is,
tell when you want the next slide? Yep.
This is a penny black cover, which I bought from Stanley Gibbons. It cost me 9 shillings. But if you look at the cover there, none of the cancellation gets onto the surround. So I think they probably cheated and stuck a penny black on an old cover. So anyway, that's what I think. You can judge for yourselves. This is one of the things that really, a recent one, 1957. And it's only because I saved this cover for its postcard showing Heidelberg on the reverse. And so I saved the postcard. And only fairly recently did I read it again and realize that, as it says, the journey from Lid in Kent to Le Touquet in France was the easiest ever. 20 minutes flight, all the time, minimum formalities. Northern France was dull, flat, and fast. But what is extraordinary, what I had completely forgotten was that in that 20-minute flight, we took our car. The car came in the aircraft with us. They were using the old Bristol transports, the ex-RAF. So our little Morris Minor, the Morris Minor estate wagon, the Woody, came with us, and we drove in that to Heidelberg, down the Rhine, back through Belgium, and back on a more conventional sea crossing. As I said there, they didn't even charge excess baggage.
They won't be doing that at the end of the month. Edward next, or is that it?
Ian Gregg's next.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm not going to say too much about that. I think it's a tragedy in its own right, really. Post office encouraging philatelists, I think. Should we move on to the next one? Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
perfect.
Because I'm not coming up as me speaking, that's all, fine.
We can hear you.
Good. Can you see the slide?
Yep.
Good. When I first saw this in an auction, I was somewhat mystified as to what was going on, but the relevance to Christmas is it was actually posted on the 24th of December, 1872, but clearly had been paid, but for some reason the post office actually detained it for 2p postage. But thanks to Guy Linfield and Don Davis's book and the time codes, it all started to become clear. The top postmark is actually letter K, as you can see in the notes, and was actually posted originally between 10:45 and 11:30, but clearly was sent without the Frank stamp on, the blue Frank stamp on, which clearly a message must have gone back to the office, to the Commissioner of Lands and Surveys, and they must have sent the boy down franked the card, which then meant it had been paid postage and it was actually sent on. If you'd like to go to the next slide. Thank you. And it was sent to Richmond Town Hall, when it was received in Richmond, clearly the postman tried to deliver it, but they'd obviously gone home from Richmond early, and so it ended up in the dead letter box. And it stayed there, as the ink note says. It wasn't finally delivered until the 9th of January. And really, that's, I guess, the moral to the story is that try to keep a clear head and not drink too much at the office party the night before, to make sure you frank all your mail or stamp all your mail so it gets sent through and can arrive on time. With that, I wish you all a very happy Christmas, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we've got Alan Shatton. Is Alan with us though?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I want to see you, Alan. Put your video on.
I don't have a video on this computer. I'm sorry. You'll just have to listen to my dulcet tones. Sorry?
Yeah, it is.
Yep, no worries.
Hang on, just everyone be quiet.
So I've only got 2 slides here. I've got about 550 postcards from Tasmania, and only 2 of them have got anything remotely funny on them. There's all kinds of views of things and pictures of women, and there are tinsel cards and all kinds of things, but I've only found 2 cartoon cards. I went through them all. So this one is seeing the umpire home. I can't see the postmark because I can see Frank Power in front of it. So I don't think it's a very interesting postmark anyway. I think it would be quite appropriate today. You want to go to the next one, Frank? That's a fern tree card, which is a fairly difficult postmark to obtain. But I must say that I'm surprised that this card was allowed to pass through the mail. That's all I have.
Thank you, Alan. Bill Clark, thank you.
Hello. This one just amused me. People being very frugal. This family, when they sent the cover from the UK to Australia or to Victoria, when it arrived, they simply just flattened out the envelope, folded it the other way and reused it. And it tickled my fancy that they're really getting every bit of value out of that envelope. So that just amused me. And then the next screen, this is just 2 postcards of St Kilda Road. And in the top one, you can see the tiny little seedlings along St Kilda Road. And I can just visualise people saying, nah, they'll never grow. And obviously the animals did trouble the trees a bit, because eventually they put little picket fences around each tree to try and keep the animals away from them. It just amuses me that they had trouble growing trees. I wasn't the only one that had trouble growing trees.
Is that Princess Bridge?
Oh yeah. And do you know how they determined the width of Princess Bridge? It was the turning circle of a bullock cart, and that's why it's such a wide bridge. Oh. Because when you've got 20 bullocks on a cart, it takes quite a distance for it to do a U-turn. And they thought, well, we'll build it so they can do a U-turn on the bridge. And so we're blessed with a wonderful wide bridge. So, yeah, So it's just a nice, interesting part of our history. Thanks, and everybody have a good Christmas and stay safe.
Good on you, Bill. Thank you. Now, Brian Fuller, has he arrived in the?
No, he hasn't.
Okay, well, I think this one's probably self-explanatory based on a cartoon in our age about how people are passing on the COVID, and he's just showing really some very bad postal markings that look rather like COVID's got at them. Spread the merry. I don't think he intended to complete that statement, but that's his idea of showing. Because Brian, for those that know him, we know full well that he's an absolute guru for postal markings and aberrations thereof.
Yeah, the problem with at the moment with all the postal markings like those from the Dandenong Mail Centre are like that, and they've got two machines there, and none of them ink it properly. I've been trying to get a good postmark of the Let's Melbourne again, and I haven't got not one single one that's been complete. And and I think I've got about 30 envelopes so far. So it's well, yeah, they are giving us a good Christmas, but no good postmarks.
The cartoon at the above looks very, very similar to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, the next one then. Thank you.
Ooh.
Is that no? That's from Les. Now we're into Les. Sorry, I wasn't.
We're
sure.
into Les.
Les, so you're there. Over to you. Thank you.
Les?
I had my mic turned off. Well, since you don't know anything about me, I thought I'd put in covers from my three main areas that I collect. The first one is U.S. departmentals from 1873 to 1884. And this is what I consider, this is an actual cover, not a cover front or a package label. And they would take covers from the Justice Department and bind them with a cover on top, and the cover on the top would pay all the postage. So this has three 90-cent stamps, which is the highest value, except for the dollar values for the State Department, and 4 30s. And it's the only 90-cent justice known. I was offered this one time, and the guy wanted a big pile of money for a bunch of stuff, and I didn't have it. So I turned it down, and another guy bought it, and then he passed away, and then another guy bought it, and I finally just got it from him. I didn't have to wait for an auction or anything. So, and it's the highest franking on an intact cover. There's a higher franking on a package label, a package, wrapper, but it's got a $2 stamp and a bunch of 10s, but this is the highest on just a regular envelope. Okay, the next. So in 1877, they created penalty envelopes for the US, the first penalty envelopes in the world. And there are penalty envelopes also in New South Wales and a few other countries. So I got to the point in my collecting this area that I couldn't, since there's no provenance of any of these things, they were never sold for the most part in auctions. They were just, went from person A to person B. I kind of dreamed that I'd like to get a cover someday from the San Francisco earthquake. And so I was back in New York City, and I called a friend of mine up who also collected this. He said, well, come over and see my collection. So I did. And I'm looking in his album, one of about 9 of them. And he says, well, if you see anything you like, take it out. Now, if somebody said that to you, you would just drop your drawers, right? So I went through and I bought this from him. And it's the only known cover from the San Francisco earthquake. And it's mailed about 2 weeks after the earthquake. Now, it turns out the San Francisco post office, most of the damage in San Francisco was from the fire after the quake, not so much the quake itself. And the post office in San Francisco, a bunch of post office employees went out and fought the fire to make sure that it didn't burn down the post office. It was one of the few intact government buildings after the quake. So if you go to the next slide, this was printed in San Francisco, and it's basically somebody was writing in about his son, saying, "Is my son alive? Is he not alive? What's going on?" So the postmaster sent this back to him saying, "Referred to the Citizens Bureau at which such investigations are carried out," and it says in pen, "Keep up courage." So there's nothing. This is the only one that's ever been seen. I showed it at a meeting one time, and Scott Treble. No, well, yeah. Well, anyway, one of the members said that he collected earthquake material and he'd never seen this before. So in the penalty area that I collect, it's hard to find anything that you just don't know what you're looking for. So I was really glad to get this one. And then the next one, about 5 years ago, I got involved in collecting New South Wales official mail from 1828 to 1912. And this is one that it had the governor for New South Wales had a frank. And that's his frank in the blue in the upper right-hand corner. But this is going to German Samoa, which is not a British Empire destination. So the franc wasn't good. And they actually had to add the five pence to pay the rate to Samoa. And it's the only New South Wales governor frank to a non-British Empire destination. So now you know the three main areas that I collect. I'm glad I was here tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's very touching, the one regarding the earthquake in San Francisco. I think the Keep Strong, I think it was a rather lovely message. So thank you for that. Tony Presgrave, over to you, please.
Yeah. I finally got some semblance of a picture up after a little bit of fiddling around. But yes, I'm here. The 3 pages that I sent came out of my River Murray collection, and the original letter is what was the interesting part of it. But it's very difficult to read when you see those pages. It's very difficult to read. I actually had to transcribe it, but it's written in the way that the person spoke. And in a number of cases, he put an H in front of a lot of words, so you get has instead of as, and so on like that. And he was a crew on one of the vessels, and I don't know which one. I don't recall what it says. Written back to Captain Armfield in Galway, Captain Sam Armfield, I think his name was. Sam, I think, was the name, and he was describing, apart from other things, that he could not get the key to unlock the cabin to get whatever it was out. And he's as I said, it's quite difficult to read the text. I haven't pulled it out of my collection, unfortunately, to be able to sit here and read it to you anyway. I can't read what's on the screen. But I just found I thought it was interesting, an insight into about 100 years ago, with somebody writing back about a job that he'd been sent up to Morgan to do. And the cover, of course, is there. And I included about a 1920s photograph of the Morgan Wharf, taken from on the cliff above the wharf. The other 2 pages are actually the handwritten script of the letter. If you want to bring the first one of them up, hopefully it'll show. It's only written in pencil, so it's not easy to read, I don't think. Oh yes, it is. It's come up fairly well. Dear Sir, Captain Armfield, I got your letter to something to tell me about the change. It should be changes, since I could not find a key to fit the door. I have not. I can't read it all myself actually now. To open the door, still locked on the window, so can't much fasten. And so it goes. And then he goes into problems with his wife and his daughter, and comes back to the problem with the door lock again. So it's all, it's quite a garbled letter, and written in that style where they just continue writing on and on and on through the page. And then signed off at the end of it, W. Haynes. And the Haynes name is not one that I really know as far as crew members on these vessels. But yeah, I just found it something that I thought might be of interest to everybody else.
Thank you, Tony. Was there anything else, Tony? Sorry,
No, I only had those 3 pages
Okay.
to
bit of
read.
history. We need a bit more water going down the Murray would help as well, I think.
Yeah, well, it's all right down this end here because we're right at the tail end of it at the moment, and it's backed up. But yes, hopefully a bit of that rain up in northern New South Wales might feed into the Darling, but I don't know that we'll see much of it down here.
Okay, Peter
Okay,
Leach.
thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Peter.
Now mine's a simple little thing. It's setting out the best building in the world, which I think is the Temple of Heaven in Peking, or as a proper name, the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvest. It was built in 1406 to 1420 by the Ming dynasty. It was burnt to the ground in 1889, and in good Chinese tradition, it was rebuilt. I've got it there 38 metres high, diameter of 36 metres. Now, if a person likes, I don't know, so I've got 2 old pictures, and then down the bottom I've got a more modern picture of the structure. But if you look at the top picture, there's actually below the building appears to be 3 levels. Now, if you're a person that's into numbers, that top level below the building has a diameter of 9 chang. A chang equates to about 3.2 metres. The dimensions of those 3 layers are all to do with 5 by 9 numeration. And the Chinese who like numbers, there's a lot of the number of 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9 happening for those 3 levels. Like if you look carefully, there's 9 steps in the centre, broken up into 3 sections. The second or the middle level has a diameter of 21 chang, or 3 times 7, and the lower level has a diameter of 21 chang, or sorry, 3 times 7. The middle one's 3 times 5. And if you total up the 3 terraces together, it makes a total of 45 chang, thus expressing the numeral relationship of 5 times 9. And there's various other ones. The total number of balustrades around the building is 360. The upper terrace contains 81 of them. So there's a numeral of 9 there, and on it goes. The figure 9 squared being the symbol of completeness to the Chinese. And so that's it. I've also included something philatelic. Issued 3 stamps for it way back. So that's it.
Peter, I'm interested that the number 8, because in Japan, certainly 8 is the magic number.
Yeah, no.
And in China, I thought. So interesting that obviously that's not involved. So
no.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. Next is then Joe Edwards. Thank you.
Oh, look, we've talked a lot over this period of COVID-19 about our poor postage delivery system, and it hasn't been the best. But if you actually look historically, I think we have a few examples of where it really has failed pretty badly in the past. And this cover came with a group of other covers I bought from New Guinea, and it was just one of these boomerang covers that was completely unimportant and probably would have gone into the bottom drawer and stayed there. But what I actually noticed was that the dates, and it was that the new airmail service in 1938, direct to Sydney to Rabaul, and took 52.5 hours, and it averaged 61 kilometres per hour, which is not bad. It's better than the old horse and cart, that's for certain. And then they returned it and via Sydney. It landed in Sydney on the 5th of June 1938 and was delivered in Mosman on the 6th of July 1949. Now, one could say was 39, and they made a mistake, make 49, but they'd also had to make a mistake between June and July. So whatever the case may be, it appears it took 96,360 hours to get from Sydney to Mosman. And I thought, well, that's worse than at the moment. You know, we've been complaining, but that's worse. It did have a total of 9 kilometres to get there, I know, but it comes out of 0.00093 kilometres per hour, which is pretty slow. And I thought to myself, well, people have been complaining about snails, about snail mail. And I thought, well, I did this short calculation. The airmail, of course, was 656,000 times faster than the local city delivery. So it's obviously a man riding a very slow push bike. But the garden snails, there's various estimates, you know, using that wonderful source of reference, Google, with saying that some could measure at 0.013 metres per second, and another one type of snail measured 0.028 metres per second. But anyway, I said, okay, let's make an average, and it was 0.028 kilometres per hour. And if we look at our 0.028 and divide it by the 0.000, we find that snails are 301 times faster than Australia Post local delivery. And I think snails are therefore have been much maligned, and they should demand a fairer description than snail mail for surface mail.
Is that?
That's
Joe?
it. That's it.
That's lovely. I imagine Australia Post are working on the record, though. They'll beat that. Okay, Mark, who I believe has joined us. Yeah.
The only comment I'll make is that irony is a form of humour.
Away you go, Mark.
No, there's nothing. It's self-explanatory.
Oh,
other than if you don't understand that irony is a form of humour.
Gotcha.
I was in London at that time.
Well, perhaps you can tell us something about it.
Oh, it was dreadful. I was working on my first job in a geriatric ward in a hospital, which was situated at St Pancras, close to Euston, St Pancras, and King's Cross Station. So we were getting all the smoke from all of those stations. And we had the old people, and you could hardly see down to the end of the ward. And it looked a little like the pictures out of the Crimean War. And a lot of them died and stuff. I mean, we felt awful. It was really miserable. People were killed in the in accidents, as it suggests in there. That's shown in the early events in the Crown movie on Netflix, but it was totally miserable, and it lasted for 4 days, and it was an introduction to medicine that I have never forgotten.
I thought as well as the added irony of it, the idea of masking up like we're doing now. So.
Oh, I don't think we bothered with that. It didn't make any difference.
But I noticed it makes reference to the Clean Air Act of 1956. Well, I was at university in London in 1960, or just soon after that. I can assure you those smogs still occurred in 1960. Okay, Mark, anything
Next
else?
one.
Well, guess what? Oh yes, no, this wasn't intended to be included, but Frank
is Mark's.
using his initiative has certainly included. Anyone who didn't see this, our old premises, 6 Avoca Street, is up for sale. It was featured heavily in The Age on Saturday. And if you actually Google 6 Avoca Street, you will get a tour inside, which you'll find quite interesting, because you will have to really go through a mental process to recognize the uses that we put to the various spaces. And anyone would be interested in the purchase, and we'd love to be able to use it again. They're seeking 6 million. The one would have to say though that over the years, millions have been spent on the property to get it to that stage, but it does look very classic on that picture, I think. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I put this envelope from Mauritius against a standard A4 envelope to give an idea of its dimensions. And I'll say, before you write to your dear friend, and I've tried to get this right, the Reverend Father Bonjean Hucheroda, and I've actually checked that surname, and it is a surname that you know, has got something of a history, but it just struck me that these very small envelopes that were quite favoured for a period, it really didn't lend itself to that particular recipient. Next one.
Ladies' envelopes.
Sorry?
Ladies' envelopes.
I couldn't hear that.
I said ladies' envelopes. That's what they were generally referred to as.
Well, but the interesting thing is, though, Tony, I think that there's a great lot of Indian influence on Mauritius mail. And if you look at a lot of Indian mail, it's small. And I've come across the reason for that. There was that their weight scale originally was extremely small. It was a very low weight scale. So there's a long history.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a stamp club. The Set of Odd Volumes. It was founded in 1878, this group of 21 members, by a bookseller in London. The 21 members comes from a Shakespeare portfolio that had been issued. And it was a very selective group, but they really enjoyed themselves. There's a reference to in about 1910 to a meeting where the first toast was made at 6:45 on the Friday, and they always met on the last Friday of the month. And the last toast was 6:50 a.m. on the following day. So the Set of Odd Volumes enjoyed themselves, but I don't think there was a stamp collector. Well, there probably was a stamp collector, but I'm not aware of one. So next one, thank you. I think this is all fairly obvious, this one. The one thing I would add about it is that its origin, I believe, is from Peter Jaffe. But an old French letter from Condom has always appealed to my sense of humour, somewhat sick as it is. The French, by the way, do not use the word condom in the way we do. But anyway, a bit of amusement. Next, please. Australia Post and the various post offices are really not getting a very good run, but the application of these yellow strips that they rather like going right across the stamps is not encouraging. And last but not least, the idea of celebrating a stamp printing error and reprinting it. Of course, it's a very famous stamp, the inverted airplane, the inverted Jenny, I think it's called. But they reprinted it not all that long ago, and it's on the stamp. And as a Christmas touch, the very last one, RFD, by the way, stands for Rural Free Delivery. And kits were made for adjusting the Ford cars with the skis on the front, adjustable with steering, and a chain to go over additional set of rear wheels and the like. The special kits were produced. This is in the 1920s, and an example of that is still in the, a version of that in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington. But really, it's a rather nice way, really, with the letterbox post being delivered in upper state New York, I think. to wish a happy Christmas to all Rpsv members and to thank everyone for participating in tonight's bit of slap and tickle. Should I use that? I don't know. But, anyway, no, a lick and something or other must be more appropriate.
Lick and stick.
Yeah, lick and stick. Exactly. But I hope you've all enjoyed the evening. It's intended to be a relaxing one. It's a shame that we couldn't have a Christmas function as we normally do. Can I just use then the opportunity just to talk about January? The hope is that in January that we can have some form of social function at 303. My investigation so far has shown that it's really like going to a person's household, that up to 30 people can visit a premises, and the government has quite clearly looked at the idea of club meetings and the like. I think we could accommodate 30, but it might well mean that we actually have to have people, well, they'll have to indicate they're coming, we'll have to restrict numbers, etc., etc. It could be all of a bit of a pain, but we'll be doing our best for all of that. It's a private event. So really with, well, February, just to say that we certainly hope to be back to normal completely in February. Now, there's quite a bit of time between then and now. So let's just hope that everything falls into place meanwhile. But can I just say thank you all for participating this evening, for those who contributed, and I hope everyone has enjoyed their evening. So before I close, Frank, thank you again for what you've done. Is there anything else that people would like to kick into play before we close off?
Yeah, I'd like to give you some information on your upside down airplane.
Yep.
I bought hundreds of those because hidden inside some of the envelopes are all, you couldn't see the stamps. You were buying this envelope. Some of them were printed right side up. And those there were 6 stamps per sheet. If you got one of those, you probably had around 50 or 60,000 US dollars, and you could sell them right away to a dealer. And so that's part of like a lottery scheme.
Did you win the lottery?
No, I didn't. But I bought it. I think several $100s of them. People were trying to buy there'd be a stamp show, and you say, "Oh God, I've got to go buy some," because you could turn around and use them for postage. So how can you get a lottery where it was a little high, but still $2? And now and then I just use them on. I got some mail I'm going to send to Australia, and they'll just be on there. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. I don't know anybody that actually found one, but whoever, I don't think they've all been found yet. So who knows?
Les, thank you for that bit of background. Anything else before we close? Oh, happy Christmas and a very safe one for everybody. For people, particularly in California and in the UK, difficult times. Our thoughts are with you. We've gone through all of that, and we know how difficult it is, but we certainly wish you well and a particularly safe period ahead. And best wishes from Australia. So thank you and good night, everybody. And thanks again, Frank. Good night.
Good night, all. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah.
Good night.
Good night.
Yep.
Good night.
Christmas. Good night.
I'm in focus now,
Night.
Stephanie.